Check sound, check sound.
check sound. حضورنا الكريم، نتمنى أن تكونوا قد استمتعتم في الجلسة الأولى، وننتقل الآن إلى الجلسة الثانية التي تحمل عنوان آفاق الذكاء الاصطناعي المستقبلية.
Ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed the first session. And now moving on to our second session of the day, which discusses opportunities in AI.
يقدم الجلسة الدكتور أندرو يانتاك، رائد الذكاء الاصطناعي ورئيس مجلس الإدارة والمؤسس المشارك لمنصة كورسيرا.
This session is presented by Dr. Andrew Yantak, chairman and co-founder of Coursera and founder of deeplearning.ai.
فليتفضل مشكورا.
Welcome on stage.
Thank you. Is this working? Thanks, everyone. So it's really good to be here in Dubai. This is my first time to this country, and I've been looking for a while for chances to engage. So I hope that this will be the first of many more trips to come. What I'd like to share with you today is some exciting opportunities in AI, and I want to share a little bit about why I'm especially excited about opportunities in the UAE. You may have heard me say in other contexts that AI is the new electricity, and what it meant is AI, like electricity, is a general purpose technology, meaning it's useful for many different things. Kind of like if I were to ask you what is electricity good for, it's almost hard to answer that because it is so pervasive. And so important work lies ahead of us to identify and build new opportunities, build new applications using what's now possible with AI technology. People often ask me, which I advance slide, sorry. People often ask me, where are the biggest opportunities in AI? Oh. And I want to share with you what I think of as the AI stack. So at the lowest layer is a semiconductor layer, and on top of that is a cloud layer, and on top of that are the foundation model trainers. Whenever there's a new wave of technology, often the media and excitement and so on focuses on these layers of the stack, and that's fine, there's nothing wrong with that. But it turns out that for all this to work out, almost by definition, there's another layer, which is the application layer, that had better become even more valuable, because we need the applications built to generate even more revenue so that they can afford to pay the layers underneath them in the stack. And speaking of applications, just for fun, last night I decided to try to use a AI music application to compose this. We'll see if I can play this audio. Oh. Headphones. And just for fun, all right. And you know, I feel like we spend a lot of time talking about how AI makes us more productive, and that's important, we'll talk about that too. But for myself, I feel like AI makes my life more fun, and maybe that's important as well. So there's a lot going on in AI, but if I were to pick what's the one most important AI technology trend, it would be the rise of agentic AI. So in terms of everything going on in AI technology, if you remember one thing, I would say pay attention to agentic AI. And here's what I mean. A lot of us may be using cloud-based large language models like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, in which we write a prompt and ask it to give a response to us. And that's a bit like going to a human, or in this case to an AI, and asking it to type out an essay by typing from the first word to the last word all in one go without ever using backspace. And despite the difficulty of being forced to write this way, in this linear way, AI does surprisingly well. But it turns out that humans and also AI do better if we allow it a more iterative workflow. In the way we use agentic workflows in AI, we might ask it to first write an essay outline on a certain topic, then ask if it needs to do any web research, and if so, let's download some web pages and put that into the AI input context, and then ask what parts of it need revision or more research, and then have it write a first draft, read its own first draft to critique it, revise the draft, and so on. And so the workflow looks more like this, where it do some thinking, and then do some revision, and then more thinking, and so on. And it turns out that by going around this loop many, many times, it gives a much better work output than the non-agentic workflow. So my team collected some data from what many different research groups had done on using AI to write code. These are results from a coding benchmark in which GPT 3.5 got this 48% right when asked to type out code. From the first character to the last character, it got it right 40% time, wrote a working program 40% of the time. GPT-4 is a much better model, 67% correct. But it turns out that the improvement from GPT 3.5 to GPT-4 is much smaller than the improvement from GPT 3.5 using an agentic workflow, and GPT-4 with an agentic workflow also works much better. And what we're seeing, what my team is seeing is, for many tasks, by building an agentic workflow, we are able, at Coursera, for example, to help developers customize their courses or give advice to learners. And at AI Fund, which I lead, we're seeing agentic workflows help with medical diagnosis assistance, or with filling out really tricky, complex compliance paperwork, or with understanding complex legal documents. But a lot of applications that my various teams have worked on, they just would not have been possible without agentic workflows. And so to modify the slide I shared earlier, this is a new emerging AI stack, where between the foundation models and the applications, there's a new orchestration layer. In computer science, orchestration means we coordinate many users of the foundation models in this case. And there has been an orchestration layer to control the layers underneath for a couple years now, but the orchestration layer is becoming increasingly agentic. But this does not actually change the conclusion I described at the start, that most of the value has to be at the application layer. But what I'm seeing is that the agentic orchestration layer makes it even easier to build applications on top. So one of the things that my team Deep Learning.ai and then also Coursera do is we work with pretty much all of the leading generative AI companies on training for developers. If you make a list of, say, the top 10 Gen AI companies, we're literally working with 10 out of 10 of them. And I think that this puts us in a privileged position to be able to take knowledge from all the cutting-edge generative AI companies and to share this with everyone around the world. And I think sometimes this helps us get a view on what may be happening next in AI as well. So if you were to remember just one AI trend, AI technical trend, I would say remember agentic AI. This is an expanding set of applications we can build. But I want to just share a few other important trends that I thought may be interesting to this audience and for this forum. So one interesting trend is Gen AI is making it possible to build prototypes very efficiently. And this is changing the way that corporations, as well as universities, as well as startups innovate. So before generative AI, if you were using predictive AI or deep learning or supervised learning, this was the workflow that I and many other teams used to build many valuable AI systems. We collect data, train an AI model, deploy the model maybe on a cloud service, and it takes us 6 to 12 months to get this to work, and nothing wrong with that. We built some very valuable AI systems this way. But it turns out there are a lot of AI systems that took me and good AI teams maybe 6 to 12 months to build, that there are now hundreds of thousands of teams they can build in maybe 10 days. We can write a few prompts in a few days and then deploy in production in just a week. And it turns out that building a piece of software has many steps, not just the AI part. You have the product design piece, maybe the user studies, data integration, guardrails, compliance. Only one part of this has sped up, which is why many businesses are observing that there are a lot of AI prototypes that have not yet got into production. And that's because a lot of the other pieces still take almost as long as it had before to work. But when the AI piece can be built so quickly, what I'm seeing many corporations do is systematically build many prototypes as part of the way to invent new things. So corporate innovation processes are changing because you can now build 20 prototypes very inexpensively and see what works. In Silicon Valley, where I live, the mantra, move fast and break things, got a bad rep because, it broke things. I think some interpret this to mean that we should not move fast, but I disagree. I think that's a mistake. Instead, I think the right mantra is move fast and be responsible. And I'm seeing a lot of businesses, startups, large enterprises, government organizations find ways to move really, really fast and also be responsible in the sense of not shipping things at scale that will cause significant damage anywhere. I think with the rise of AI and generative AI, all knowledge work is also being transformed by AI. And this is creating a lot of new skills and new opportunities to leapfrog in many job roles. So for example, what is the future of a marketer's job when there's AI? What's the future of an investor's job role with AI? I think that AI is creating a new need for upskilling, but also opportunities for countries all around the world to rethink what it means to do all of these different things. And as a part of that, I'm seeing a fascinating trend where many people that are not software engineers are learning to code. One of the reasons for this is AI can act as a coding companion, so you never have to code alone, and this makes it much easier to code. On my team, I have a marketer that's learned to code, and he's writing code to scrape web pages, to download web pages to get marketing insights. There's also an investor on my team that writes code, and he writes code to automate the creation of legal documents. And so what I'm seeing is a lot of people that are not software engineers are learning to code, and this is driving a real difference in the job roles. To any of you that have children, if you're wondering if you should ask them to code, have them learn to code, my answer is yes. I think in this next generation, as we bring up more children, having everyone learn to code will be a very positive thing. In the United States, 4 out of 50 states already require some computer science education to receive a high school diploma, and I hope that will be 50 out of 50 states someday. On the technical front, what we're seeing is that the text processing revolution has arrived, with ChatGPT and so on. And what is less visible is the image processing revolution is coming too. And I don't mean image generation, although I think that's nice. I mean image analysis. And this will enable many new visual AI applications in manufacturing, self-driving, security, drones, and so on. My team, for example, has actually worked on some visual AI applications on the inspection of undersea oil and gas pipelines using these types of new visual AI capabilities where our AI is able to look at pictures of, say, an undersea pipe and inspect it. Finally, I think AI has an important role to play in climate change. AI does a lot of things, but I'm going to focus on just one thing, which is AI climate modeling for geoengineering. For those of you that don't know what geoengineering is in fact, I think it will be an important technique where we spray aerosols high up, say in the stratosphere, to reflect 1% to 2% of sunlight away from Earth. And I think this is a promising tool worthy of exploration that is probably one of our best tools for giving us an extra 0.5 to 1 degrees Celsius of cooling. And AI climate modeling is playing a critical role to help us understand if geoengineering will work, and if indeed this is an effective tool for giving us an extra 0.5 to 1 degrees, maybe even more of cooling. This domain name, Planet Parasol, actually hosts an AI climate model emulator that my team built, where anyone can go to run a simulator to try to understand the impact of geoengineering for potentially cooling down the planet. But I hope that countries such as the UAE will engage in this as well. So, talk a lot about AI technology and some high-level trends. I want to share with you what I think of how I think corporates can innovate in AI. One of my team's AI Fund, we do a lot of work with large corporations, and what we see is AI is automating a lot of knowledge work. This is a diagram from a research paper by some friends at UPenn and their collaborators at OpenAI, where the horizontal axis is salary in US dollars, and the vertical axis is how exposed are different jobs to AI. the interesting thing about this diagram is that whereas earlier waves of AI tended to affect routine repetitive tasks, such as in industrial automation, this wave of AI is affecting knowledge work much more. And so this creates new opportunities for businesses, as well as a new need to give new skills to knowledge workers to use AI. But what AI Fund, my team, has done is we work repeatedly with large businesses to build new startups as part of the core innovation process. And I want to share with you one example of a startup that we worked on. And walk through our process, because I hope this will be useful to some of you too, for businesses in the UAE, for taking advantage of what's now possible with AI. So my team has always had access to a lot of ideas, and a few years ago, Mitsui Corporation came to me, and Mitsui Corporation in Japan operates very large fleets of ocean-going vessels since a global trading company, and they said that we should look at using AI to make ships more fuel efficient. So when screening ideas, my team will typically look at an idea like this and spend maybe a month validating if there's a market need and if it's technically feasible. And if it is, we then recruit a CEO to help us build this business. We recruited Dylan Kyle, who's a repeat entrepreneur with one successful exit before, and we typically then spend 3 months with the CEO building a technical prototype. If it survives the stage, we write a check to invest in the company. This lets them hire a team, get real customers, and keep growing and scaling. And the outcome of this example is that Bearing AI is now running on over 600 ships on the high seas today, saving about $500,000 in fuel costs per ship per year by using global wind and ocean current data to suggest to the ships how to steer to get it to its destination safely and on time, and with about 10% less fuel and about 10% less CO2 emissions. And I want to highlight this example because as an AI person, I would never have come up with this idea because I just don't know much about global maritime shipping. But it took Mitsui Corporation with deep knowledge of this industry and my team with knowledge of AI to come together to identify and then to build this application. And I think this is just one of thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of AI opportunities that are yet to be identified and built. My team AI Fund works a lot with corporate partners to identify, build, and execute AI opportunities. I will share with you very briefly a playbook that seems to work well. We think it's important to provide just a little bit of executive training on AI technology. The fastest growing course on Coursera last year was Generative AI for Everyone, and this gives a non-technical business level understanding of what AI is, what it can and cannot do, and so on. And we found that with just a little bit of executive training on AI technology, this often then leads to very productive brainstorming of AI projects. And every business we worked with ends up with many ideas on AI. And teams will have ideas, but I want to share with you one recipe called task-based analysis of jobs that's especially fruitful for identifying AI application opportunities. This was pioneered by one of my friends, Eric Brynjolfsson, who's a Stanford professor, and some of his colleagues, but it comes from the observation that even though we worry about AI automating jobs, and that's an important conversation for governments and societies and academia to have, I think from a business perspective, it's more useful to think of AI as automating tasks. So jobs are bundles of many different tasks, and when we look at what our workforces are doing and break it down into tasks, it can let us then productively identify which tasks AI can automate or augment. So for example, customer service representatives are being disrupted by AI, and customer service representatives do many different tasks. Some of them are at high AI automation potential and others less so. And I find that when we go through this brainstorming process, identify what a workforce of thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people are doing, that often identifies tasks that give us productive opportunities to pursue with AI. And I know that this might seem like a recipe for cost savings because it seems like I'm saying, take a task, automate it, make it 1,000 times cheaper. And some businesses will want to take the cost savings, and that's fine. But more than half the time, in my experience, a business will instead say, great, I can now take this task and do this task 1,000 times more. And this often, most of the time, ends up being a recipe for revenue growth rather than savings. After identifying projects, we will then typically carry out diligence on what is feasible. And after selecting projects, this then leads often into project selection process. And it turns out that when you look at a build versus buy criteria, if it already exists in the market, I often advise companies, just go buy it. No need to build it if you don't have to. But it turns out because AI technology is so new, a lot of the applications we want have not yet been built. And at that point, you have to decide, do you want to build it internally, which is fine, or do you want to spin out into a startup? In the case of Mitsui Corporation and the fuel savings business, Mitsui did not want to have to hire an AI team, pay for it, maintain it, and be wholly responsible for building and maintaining an AI product for recommending to ships how to steer. And by working with us via this process to spin out into an independent startup, Mitsui wound up getting all the benefits of having AI to help the ships guide their ships without needing to have to pay for and maintain and be responsible for the startup themselves. And we found that when a company wants the benefits but not pay for the idea, this process for building the startup is often helpful. And then lastly, I think there's a lot of long-term work to be done as well on shaping up AI strategy, workforce reskilling or workforce training, and so on. But we find that for a lot of businesses, I hope in the MENA region as well, in the UAE and in Dubai, there'll be opportunities to apply this side of the recipe to drive corporate innovation using AI as well. Before I wrap up, there's just one last topic I want to touch on, which is the governance of AI. When I speak with governments around the world, as well as with boards, I'm often asked, how do we govern AI? And the key message I want to leave is, I think it's important to distinguish between technology and applications, and we should govern applications, not technology. So in tech, I think we have to distinguish between technology, such as an electric motor would be an example of a technology, and applications like if you put an electric motor in a blender or a vehicle or a dialysis machine or maybe a guided bomb. Some of these we want more of, some of these maybe we want less of. And it turns out that technology refers to tools that can be applied in many ways to solve problems, and applications are specific implementations of technologies designed to meet particular customer needs. AI technology is like that too. An AI model can be used in a medical device, in a social media feed, a chatbot, and so on. Some positive and some maybe not very positive applications. And it turns out risks depend much more on the application, not on technology. So governing a general purpose technology like an electric motor or AI would just stifle innovation without enhancing safety. Because if you go to the maker of an electric motor and tell them, can you guarantee no one will ever take your electric motor and use it in a weapon or in a harmful application? It is impossible for electric motor maker to do that. The technology just does not exist. So I think, but instead, if we go to the maker of a blender and ask them to make it safe, or the maker of an electric vehicle, or if we go to the maker of a medical device, we can figure out what we do and do not want in the medical device and make sure that is safe. And so I think both for governments as well as for corporations, looking at applications rather than technology gives us a better way to govern AI. Over the last year and a half, in both the United States and the European Union, I was surprised at the intensity of the lobbying by usually certain large corporations that had invested a lot of money in training large AI models and did not want to compete with free open source or open weight models. And so I was surprised by the intensity of the lobbying efforts to pass stifling regulations to try to shut down open source or open weights AI models, which refers to when a team releases an AI model free on the internet for anyone to use. Fortunately, we've defeated the worst of the regulations, but there are continuing to be attempts to pass these regulations, and if they succeed, then many nations, including the UAE, will lose access or find it much harder to access cutting-edge AI. So I think it'd be in the interest of almost everyone, except for a small number of tech companies lobbying against open source and open waste models to make sure that these regulations don't come to pass. So let me just wrap up and conclude. This is my last slide. AI is a general purpose technology. It creates many ways to build applications and is expanding the set of tasks that AI can do. With all the changes wrought by AI, there's a huge need for new skills to prepare businesses and individuals for the future of work where AI will work alongside us and job roles are changing. And then lastly, As you saw earlier this morning, the UAE is the number one ranked country on the readiness index in the Arab world and number 8 globally. And I think that UAE is very well positioned to grow in the AI era. And so Coursera and my other teams, Deep Learning AI Fund, all of us are grateful for the opportunity to engage and look forward to hopefully doing much more with all of you in the future as well. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you.